Nope, this is the first time.
I've never been. I've gone by it. I've never been here. I don't think. No, I don't think I ever have.
Your daughter says it's good. I have the pleasure of having lunch today with my friend and former boss, one of my most favorite bosses of all time, the former mayor, Nick Bucci, also known as Rich Bucci to some of you. What's the story on the nickname Nick? Does it have to do with playing cards as a kid?
That was one of the stories on it, but the other one, it was almost simultaneous, but the other one was, and I think we're really caught on, is we were all watching kind of a mobster film on TV. And one of the people talking was quoted as saying, Nick, you dirty rat, you killed my brother. And they go, that looks like Booch. And from that point, they started calling me Nick. But then the other one was the cards too as well. But I think that's the definitive story on how it really caught on.
Class
photos.
Good God. That's funny. And there I am in all my glory with no glasses, and there you are. So this will be a good time to ask you the first question I had for you, which is going to go in no particular order. So that's 1998, and then this is
2002.
Yeah, that's a bit crazy. Where are they now?
You know, there's obviously different people in the photos.
So of all the people in your administrations, who was your very favorite person? And of course me, but
absolutely.
Take me out of it.
After you're out of the picture, that's a hard one to say.
Yeah.
But everybody was great. But I'm gonna have to give a shout out to Jimmy Matthews, who was
Jim
and deputy clerk.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you about him is that he had a phenomenal math mind.
Oh, 100%.
And Beth Palmer told me he would reconcile the books almost to the penny. And she said that's almost impossible for that level of accounting.
I do remember that about him.
But he just, was so persistent. So, but he was a very dedicated professional.
And I remember tragically the day that we learned that he went home and just passed away
in his sleep.
Yeah.
But
a good low-key
guy.
guy.
He was a real asset to the treasurer's office, to the controller's office.
Yeah.
And I think Bev Palmer, who did an excellent job also, couldn't say enough good things about him.
So this is a serious one. So Jason Garner has been around for a long time, since you were mayor, and his dad, of course, very well-respected professor at SUNY Broome. And Jason's been involved in politics now for quite a bit. County executive, third term, What do you make of is it an accomplishment? Like, as Letterman used to say, is this a thing or is this not a thing? 6 straight years of lowering property taxes for homeowners.
Oh, I think it's definitely a thing. Obviously, homeowners, are very conscious of what their tax bill is. And a lot of times, it's difficult, but taxes in many communities are going up. To hold the line on taxes or be able to lower them, I think is a significant accomplishment. I think what it does is it energizes the community. People feel comfortable being in their homes. They're supportive of the community. I think it's a difficult task to kind of achieve on a regular basis. Like in the city of Binghamton, for example, I think it's a little bit more difficult because a lot of the city budget is personnel driven. So, for example, public safety in the city of Binghamton, police and fire is about 70% of the budget. And if you had parks and public works, it's probably another 10% or more. So if you wanted to cut, in the city of Binghamton, for example, you almost have to cut people because that's basically where all the cost is. So then you have a dilemma, if I cut police and fire, am I compromising public safety, which is important to the people that live in the city? So it's a real difficult task sometimes to try to balance those two objectives. The higher you go, you have more options and you have more sources of revenue, so it becomes a little less challenging. But it's still a significant accomplishment of which he should be very proud.
Okay, so here we are at the shop on Washington Street, downtown Binghamton. Really cool little place. We haven't gotten our food yet, but we'll get to that. Talk to me about some of the places that you frequent. Can you give me a top 3 restaurants for, for former Mayor Bucci?
Fortunately, there's a great wealth, as you well know, of restaurants in the southern tier.
Very much.
They run the gamut.
Yep.
The city of Binghamton, we're very fortunate. I think they have a real cross-section of restaurants. I think I would put it in categories. Maybe like the steakhouses, Station 45, which just opened, I like a lot. I think they did a phenomenal job at restoring that train station. I mean, that really looks like something you would see in New York City. I mean, they did a beautiful job.
Yeah.
And the food there is good. I like Remlick's also as kind of a steakhouse.
Our food is here. Yay.
Mid-rear bacon cheddar burger.
Thank you, sir. Yours, we got the same thing. We got plain old bacon cheddar, but Mayor got Swiss and a little more done. Mine is, cultured, I suppose. I had my burger delivered, and you were talking about categorizing. You had mentioned the steakhouses.
Then I'd probably go to Italian restaurants, and Cortiz's and Little Venice are both very good. The city of Binghamton, I go to them frequently. I really like Cortiz's pizza. And then like the kind of pub restaurants, definitely have to go with Stadium 138, our former friend and former Mayor Rich.
Of course you have to go with that. You have to be politically correct there.
But that's a good spot. And also the Union. I think the Union is a great spot.
If people don't know that are watching this, that Stadium 138 is owned by Rich David, a different former mayor who actually came into the mayor's office when I went down to the city clerk's office. So
right.
He had a route there. Now he's a
Pepsi when you get the Coke.
business owner.
And then the Union Hotel on Clinton Street, which is a great spot. It's a great anchor on Clinton Street.
Terrific place.
Thrilled to have them in the city of Binghamton. I did a great job renovating the place. It's got great food.
All right, so you've got your food, which is basically the same thing I got, but there's Swiss there. And then I talked to your son Peter before this, and he said, yeah, make sure to ask him about why he hates red sauce so much. And
you know what? I'm kind of a connoisseur of red sauce. I don't like everyone's red sauce. I mean, I think the sauce, if it's a little bit more bitter, for lack of a better word, I don't like it. So I like a sauce maybe that's been kind of sweetened a little bit with like chicken or pork. A lot of Italian cooks do that, and it kind of takes some of the acidity out of the sauce, and that's kind of the way I like it.
do you ever cook at home? Do you and Sue cook at home?
We do. Obviously, she cooks more than I do. But ironically, when I was in college, I was worked as a short order cook in a bar.
That's fantastic.
And one of the things we did, one of our meals was pasta, spaghetti or rigatoni, and meatballs. It was a special. Mm-hmm. And the owner made a great red sauce, and he always put chicken necks into the sauce, let them simmer in there for hours, and he took them out. But that kind of really added flavor to the sauce.
That's fun.
It was a great sauce.
So Peter doesn't really know what he's talking about, is what you're saying. Right?
No, but he knows. He knows I'm a stickler for the right red sauce.
Nice. Yep. We're talking, and we're ignoring the actual food. What are you thinking so far of your burger?
I think it's good. I think it's cooked the way I liked it, and
You got yours medium well.
yeah.
Mine's medium rare. Just about perfect there.
And presentation's good.
Yeah, love it. Fries are really good too. I give it a big good. What do you give it?
I think so too. Well, you know why they came out hot? And I was like,
Yep.
It seems almost like they made them to order rather than have them sitting there.
Yep. Yeah, mine came out a couple minutes before yours, but who cares?
Yeah.
What were you saying about coming here for lunch?
Well, you know, I was familiar with this here. I had not been in here. You know, I was pleasantly surprised by the size of it. It looks a lot bigger. It looks a lot bigger. It's definitely, I should say that, it's bigger on the inside than it looks.
It's a wow factor too when you walk in. It's really nice.
And so it's something now that, if I'm looking for a lunch spot, it's just definitely someplace I would consider coming for lunch, for business or pleasure.
Big boxing match last week, Mike Tyson and Jake Paul. So what would happen? Steel cage, death match, bare-fisted. One guy can come out, you and John Burns Jr., the battling conservative and less conservative liberal end politicians of Binghamton. You gonna take him?
Well, I'll tell you, I think it would go the distance. But, John is a little bit more nimble. John is a little taller, so I think John might have the edge.
He's gonna have the edge on
But
length.
I think we would go the distance, though.
Nice.
It would come down to, a decision at the end.
Now,
on points.
I'll just go off of that question. It sounds insane, which it probably is, but so your daughter, Liz, married into that family. What was that conversation like when she came home and said, Dad, I'm marrying a Burns?
Well, ironically.
Who also, by the way, they have a stake and they are owners at Peterson's,
Right,
correct?
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
Another great little place.
Well, ironically, Joe Burns, who is Liam's uncle, John's brother, and I have been friends for over 50 years. We went to high school together. And Joe Burns' wife and I went to know each other from elementary school.
I didn't know that was allowed.
Yeah, so
Bucci's and Burns
she was
actually coexisting.
His wife Sue Walsh was a year behind me, but we went to St. Thomas's together, Catholic Central together, and then she ended up coming to St. Bonaventure. So I've known his wife almost my whole life. So we're good friends, and I've known the family obviously.
Yeah.
And ironically, the first time I ran for mayor, Juanita Crabb backed out, and John Burns became the candidate who was Liam's grandfather and John's father. So it was a really small world. But so when she came, I didn't know Liam until I got to meet him. But he's a real solid young man. He's a businessman. He's got his head screwed on right, and he kind of has a feel for being in business. And dealing with all the regulations and expenses.
That's tough.
He's naturally, leans more, I think, towards the Republican side of the equation. So, ironically, but, it's a real coincidence based on the fact that, really two kind of political families kind of came together, one Democrat, one Republican, and so far it's worked out very well.
Excellent.
That's the last thing you need.
Oh my goodness. Now let me show my credit card number on the video. So another question off of that. So you've got 3 grown now children. Caroline, Peter, and Liz.
Right.
Who's the favorite?
Depends what day it is.
Do you have one that you could kind of take or leave?
Depends who gives me the biggest birthday present. Usually that's how I make my decision.
When is your birthday?
April 4th.
Oh, April 4th. Okay. So
No,
they have time
obviously they're all great kids.
would
And they
agree.
grew up obviously me being the mayor, which added extra challenges to their life sometimes. I think back on it when I first got elected. Peter was in kindergarten, and then when I finished, he was a senior in high school, and it just
12 years, crazy.
When you think about it in those terms, and you talk about 12 years, but then when you talk about kindergarten to high school, it really puts a spotlight on the 3 terms that seemed like they went very fast, ironically.
Yeah.
But a lot happened in those 12 years, both politically and my family life, and just a lot of memories. But any event, they were great kids, and they were able to navigate all that with not too much problems, and most of the time they kind of enjoyed it.
So you're married to Sue, maiden name O'Hare.
Right.
You guys have been married a little bit.
Yeah, I've been married 42 years.
So what's the secret?
It's hard to say.
Success.
A lot of times people
Is there
come
one?
up- I
You're
don't know.
famous for saying there's no magic bullet. I don't know if I wrote that or stole it from you writing for somebody else.
There is no magic bullet. I think a lot of times it's to try to find humor in things. If you're able to, whether it's the good, the bad, the ugly. In the end,
Very
you don't
nice
you don't
placement.
You don't let it get you. You just you try to find the humor and you kind of keep moving forward. I think that's the best thing. A lot of times people will say communication, which is obviously important, but I think it goes even deeper than that. I mean, and then obviously the longer you're together, the more you kind of have a real feel for each other, and that makes a difference too, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. So you're mayor for 3 terms, the 4 term limits. That's a total of 12 years, as we've talked about. One of those elections you pulled in 81%. That's kind of unheard of. Another 1 or 2, were more competitive, but you were the clear favorite in each of those. What do you attribute that to in a community that can be somewhat divided politically? I mean, if you have a D after your name, or an R after your name, or even an I after your name.
Yeah, I mean, I think, as the time, it's really more of a democratic city by enrollment. I think, the important thing I did and tried to do was just to be engaging with the population in a number of different ways. Obviously I went door to door all 3 elections to try to meet people personally on their doorsteps, to listen to what was important to them. But also, and I thought it was a very important part of the job to go to the recreational, the cultural events that were taking place in the city, interact with people, be seen that you care, that you want to be involved. And I think just being accessible, and I think people appreciated that. Also realizing that all the decisions that were made, for the most part, were made with the best interests of the city of Binghamton at hand. I mean, no one could point that we were trying to help somebody because of favors or political ties. We try to do everything above board with transparency, so people could see if we made a decision, even if they disagreed with it, they could understand why we made that decision. And so I think in a way that helped a lot in regards for people feeling comfortable with our administration. And the other thing is, we put a solid team of people together that really did a phenomenal job. And I remember when I was first elected, I said the easiest thing would have been to do right after I got elected my first time, get a couple cases of beer, put all my friends into different department head positions. But in the end, that would have backfired. If they weren't qualified, because if it doesn't work, it ends up, the buck stops with the mayor. So we worked very hard to find the best people we could, and I think we did. And some people I knew before I became mayor, and others we had search committees, and we found people that some came from out of town. So, but in the end, I think we built a real solid administration, a really good, strong team.
When you look back on your time as mayor, do you have one thing or a couple things that you're most proud of?
Yeah, I think that first thing that comes to mind is bringing Binghamton University downtown. That was something I thought was very important for revitalizing and differentiating the city. Up in the 50s, 60s, 70s, Binghamton was a retail hub, like most cities were. With the advent of the malls, a lot of retail left the urban centers, and a lot of cities were struggling for a new identity. And I said, we could be an entertainment center, professional center. We had a lot of offices downtown. Government is downtown. But I thought we also could be a university center. I thought that would help, revitalize the city. So I was very aggressive about it. Was an advocate about it. At first, the president of BU, Lois DeFleur, was not in favor of it. But as time went on, the governor became a fan of it, and he fast-tracked it.
Was that Governor Pataki?
Governor Pataki.
Right.
There's a lot of times when you talk about putting a project downtown, the downtown campus was a $29 million project, and sometimes it's in multiple budgets. They'll put like $10 million in the first year, $10 million in the second year, so forth. He put the whole amount of money in one budget so the project could start and go without any interruption. And as a result, by putting it there, we've attracted a lot of student housing downtown. So it's achieved the objective. And I remember Al Boskov said, because we met with the governor, and Al Boskov said, if you bring the University Center downtown, he goes, we'll be committed to stay downtown. So it paid dividends that way as well. So that was very important to me, and I'd probably say the second one was building the park at the confluence of the 2 rivers. That was just overgrown brush and trees. Very few people went down there except fishermen. Some people went down there, to drink, vagabonds and other associated characters. But we opened that up at the confluence of the Shenango and Susquehanna rivers, And it's one of the most beautiful vistas in upstate New York. It really is. And then building the walkway along the river. I think just opening the river up for for the residents of the city. We realize the rivers are an asset, but they were walled off, or where the park is was just blocked off, with overgrown shrub and trees. So now it's become a destination point, for photographers, wedding photographers, graduation photographers, and families and couples go down there. So it's a real dynamic. So I'm proud of that, making that a park, opening up the rivers, and I think that was a catalyst for the walkway along the Vestal Parkway, to try to put people close to the rivers. So that was important as well. And then investing in our infrastructure, I think probably that last thing was critical as well.
Okay, so we've talked about things that you are most proud of when you look back at your time as mayor. Anything that you would go back and kind of have a redo on? Anything that you've got perspective of time?
Well, it's hard to say. Nothing quickly comes to mind. I think that for the most part, I think we didn't really try to embark on any grandiose projects that just fell flat. I think everything we tried to do, we tried to put a lot of thought and research into it before we embarked on it. Like, for example, the river park and the river walkway. When we started that, we were also able to tap into state funds, which made it much more viable. So we didn't, a lot of that was paid for by different pockets of money coming from the state of New York. So I think that made a difference. So I think for the most part, we tried to be very conscientious how we approached projects. One of the bigger projects also was building a new public works facility. It was hard to get city council to agree on a site, but the project was definitely necessary. The facility we were using was a converted horse barn. It was when the city used to pull trash wagons by horses. That we were using that building right up until we built the public works garage. So that tells you how desperately we needed one. And so we finally were able to build one that was kind of a state-of-the-art facility. But again, we tried to do our due diligence before we embarked on that, so that we could eventually bring it to fruition. So I think for the most part, everything we tried to accomplish, we were able to. For the most part.
So we're talking a little bit about bringing attention to the rivers and the confluence and the park and those sorts of things. There's always room for growth there with businesses coming along the river and that sort of thing. But one thing that's very much in the news right now, and I'm looking at it too, and trying to do any little thing that I can, is the situation with people being houseless and homeless. And right now it seems like a lot of the attention's right on the riverbanks. Again, there's no single solution to it, but have you thought about those things lately at all?
Ironically, on Veterans Day, I was at a ceremony at the South Washington Street Bridge where the Skirmisher Monument is. And traditionally, Post 80 holds a Veterans Day ceremony there every year. So I was there with former Mayor Rich David and also the current Mayor Jerry Crane. And as I was standing there before the ceremony started, I looked out in both directions along the Susquehanna River, and I saw all of these basically encampments along the river wall. And that's the first time I had really seen that. And some of them were significant in size. And then I heard people saying that periodically the police will go down there and try to move them along and stuff, which is obviously a difficult job to do, but it brings you back to it's a difficult problem. And you can push these people along, which you can't allow encampments to grow, but we have to find some way of trying to help these people. And I don't know if it lends itself to an easy answer, but I think you really almost have to pull all the churches together, all the nonprofits, and say, what can we do to provide some relief for these people? Now, some of them don't want that. Some of them want their independence. They want their freedom. They're kind of lone rangers, and they want to live like that. if you don't deal with it, I think it's just going to continue to grow. And then you have situations like you do out in California, where you have blocks and blocks and blocks, and sometimes miles of homeless encampments.
Right.
And so I think we have to find a way to provide assistance so that they have alternatives. We know we have the Salvation Army, we have Volunteers of America, we have Catholic Charities. So we have organizations here that can help, the YMCA, the YWCA. But I think sometimes we might have to just pull everyone together, and as a large consortium of people who care, and see what can we do.
I'm taking a little heat from some people because they don't think that anything should be shown, no photos and no locations or anything like that. The locations are pretty obvious if you show where a tent is or a group of tents are. I'm just doing the one thing that I know that I can do, which is write about it. And like you said, you weren't fully aware. You're not going down to the river on a regular basis,
right. Well,
and you can't see it from every angle when you're driving through. So.
Well, I think the thing is, first of all, showing it. I mean, they're very visible, and along the riverbank, you can see them if you're going that way. As long as you're not, filming people's faces and things like that, that's
right.
That's fine. And I think, but showing the general encampment, it's nothing. But here's the point: by doing that, I think you put a spotlight on it, and I think most people are going to have a reaction. What can we do to help? Or what can be done to help these people? I don't think anybody wants to hurt them.
No.
So I think sometimes the first step into solving a problem is acknowledging there is a problem.
Yeah.
And until we do that, we're not going to move towards finding some kind of resolution, which is not an easy task. But maybe we can provide some relief or some support for if people are down there with kids and families.
Right.
So. It's a serious topic, it's a sad topic, but I think talking about it is a good thing.
Not much. Snow day.
I know. Which is what? Did you tell me you're doing